When I run in-person workshops, I always provide fabric pieces for us to practice stitching on before people start mending their well-loved garments. These samplers allow the freedom to get used to different techniques and build confidence at a personal pace. Sadly, but I guess luckily for me, I've always been able to find an overabundance of clothing in charity shops that I can use for these samplers. I've been given dozens of garments over the years that I've slowly worked through as well, but when I do have to source extras, there are always discount rails and bargain bins in the charity shops that I can trawl through. On a recent trip, I noticed a huge green bin in one of my favourite local charity shops. The sign read, "Fill a bag for £2", and the bin was overflowing with jackets, jeans, knitwear and other garments across menswear, women's wear and children's wear. I filled a bag which will provide me with fabrics for workshops for the rest of the year, and whilst rummaging I also found this green child's cardigan. Hand knit, dotted with moth holes, and with a name tag hanging by a thread on the inside. I just couldn't leave it. It came home with me and I spent the next few days thinking about it on a loop. This was made by someone to gift to a child, and it broke my heart to see its value diminish to the bargain bin. Anyone who knits or crochets knows the time, effort and love that goes into projects like these. Some charity shops won't even sell damaged pieces like this. Instead, they get bagged up and sold as part of rag bags that in a best case scenario are taken and recycled into things like mattress stuffings and insulation. The problem with this is that in the UK, this recycling service is estimated to cost £88 million and is suffering due to the decline of quality fabrics that are making up the donations nowadays. Here's a quote from a recent report from wrap.ngo. The cost for collectors and sorters to gather and process the UK's worn-out textiles was previously balanced out by the money they made on reusable items, but this is no longer the case. There are fewer reusable items that are desirable in global second-hand markets. Most businesses are currently operating at a loss and out of public service. What this means is that in reality, the clothes that can't be recycled will be exported to the global south, where places like Cantonmento Market are left to deal with the problem. And once there, they'll most likely end up being dumped in landfills or incinerated. I knew I wanted to mend the moth holes on this cardigan, but I also started thinking about ways that I could try to hit home what this rejected piece of clothing means on a larger scale. A recent report from earthday.org has shown that every year the fashion industry generates 92 million tonnes of landfill waste, a truly shocking statistic. I spent a few days chain stitching this statistic onto the back of the cardigan and spent that time thinking about the value of our clothes, or lack thereof. We all know that the quality of clothing has gone down drastically over the years, thanks to a combination of synthetic fibres, huge overproduction, and corruption throughout the manufacturing process, largely at the cost of garment workers. But if even good quality handmade pieces like this cardigan can still end up discarded and destined for landfill, then what does that say about our connection to clothing? The convenience of buying new and discardable attitude towards clothing has completely distorted what fabric is worth, even at a fibre level. Yes, natural fibres are still being shouted about, but the changes we've seen throughout history to their worth at the cost of cheaper and more convenient options can be clearly seen. For example, in the early 1800s, cotton products would account for 42% of Britain's exports, and so the value of cotton to the British Empire was huge. But by the 1980s, mills were being closed regularly. So where does the value of our clothing come from? If not in the fibres or the maker of the piece, what makes a garment worth keeping? Were the moth holes the only reason this cardigan was donated? If so, this shows more than ever that the art of repair needs to be prioritised. I can't answer these questions, but to end, I'd like to share with you a few stories about the valuable garments in my wardrobe. Maybe I place too much value on everything I own, I'm not sure, but I feel genuinely attached to every piece I have. I have a Merchant & Mills Uniqlo jumper that I've had for over 10 years. It's a fast fashion piece, but I remember when this collaboration came out and how excited I felt to get the jumper. I wore it for the first time to visit my sister when she was at university, and it's been a constant comfy favourite in my wardrobe ever since. It's actually in need of some repairs to the cuff edges, which I really need to get on with. I have a bright jungle print viscose skirt that I bought from a kilo sale in Brighton years ago. I mostly have a monochrome wardrobe, and this is a super colourful piece that I can't wait to wear every summer, and somehow it goes with everything. I still have my original Spice Girls t-shirt. It's over 25 years old now, and thanks to the 90s, my mum bought this so oversized for me at the time that it still fits me now. It's a perfectly worn-in t-shirt that, as odd as it might sound, makes me feel connected to my childhood self. I have a knitwear collection that I love, and it's too hard to pick just one favourite piece. I finished my first ever hand-knit jumper over winter last year, and I've already worn that to death. I have a super chunky hand-knit jumper that I found on Vinted, and then shortened it to fit me. And I think there's something to be said about the extra value added when you take the time to alter your clothes to fit you. I also have jumpers gifted to me from my mum, which will always be extra special. I have a Lazy Oaf Happy Sad dress that I bought second-hand to celebrate my book Well Worn. Every time I wear this, I feel great, and it makes me so happy to put it on. It had a tear to the front, which meant that it was so much cheaper than it should have been, but I repaired it discreetly, and now you'd never know it was there unless you were looking for it. I'd love for you to share stories about your own clothing too. Where does their value come from? Are there stories attached? Do they come from someone special? Or are they just the comfy pieces that have your back day in and day out?